It's the Locked On Flyers podcast for Wednesday, November 8th, your daily dose of Flyers news, analysis, and high quality content that didn't want the Flyers to fall into that trap, but they fell into the trap, Russ.
I said on radio the Sharks were going to win one of the next two. They did.
All right, we'll get into the why of it, plus your mailbag questions, all on today's show.
You're Locked On Flyers, your daily podcast on the Philadelphia Flyers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, and thanks for making Locked On Flyers your first listen every day. I am Rachel Donner. You can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at @rmiriam. I'm here, as always, with Russ Cohen, who's on all your favorite social media apps at Sportsology. We are at Locked On Flyers on Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Twitter as well. Today's episode is brought to you by Sleeper. Download the Sleeper app and use the promo code LOCKEDONNHL to get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. You can subscribe or follow us for free over on YouTube or on the SiriusXM app. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, subscribe to get our latest episode as soon as it's available here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Russ, I think that there's a couple of things going on here with this Flyers after dark loss to the San Jose Sharks. First off, we had Sean Couturier back in the lineup, and I think that I don't want to say he came back too soon, but I also want to say that maybe he wasn't 100% because he had a rough game. I think he did some vintage Sean Couturier things, but his difficulty on the faceoff dot was a little alarming, I would say. He was 6 for 13 there.
Yeah, he was losing faceoffs in the offensive zone in a 6-on-5 situation, which that's when you have to count on him, and he wasn't coming through.
Yeah, and I don't want to put too much on him because this was a team effort, but
Yeah,
I do think those faceoffs were certainly important.
yes.
And especially, when they got power play opportunities and he's not winning those faceoffs, it doesn't allow them to get the chances that they need. And so I think there's a little bit going on there. And faceoffs overall, the Flyers were terrible in general, not just Couturier on faceoffs. So that was a struggle. Of course, Morgan Frost was out of this one and continues, I think, to not get the recognition, and that maybe the Flyers could have used him in this game.
Yeah, I think so. Again, that extra foot speed. He does win some faceoffs. He can cover some players. I know people want to focus on the occasional turnover, but maybe he would have been the guy to keep up with Anthony Duclair. Like I said, they had to watch out for him. He's always done well against them, and it seemed like they didn't heed that, and that was a problem. They took too many penalties too. Like, I
Yeah.
give the Sharks credit. The Sharks wanted to come out of that, and look, this was all foreseeable. We talked about this all the show before. The Sharks had, they had this conference before this, the day before this game. They were put on notice. They were going to come out hard, and the Flyers needed to match that. And honestly, they didn't. And that's something where this is not, a great team in this league. This was a desperate team, though. And so this is a kind of a fail for them and the coaching staff. And again, the power play and the coaching staff, people are getting very frustrated with that too.
Yeah, on the San Jose side. And, you ran into Blackwood, who had a tremendous game.
Yep,
And, you do
they did.
want to make that point because he absolutely did. But you can also look at what the Flyers did out there. If you just look at the shots on goal in this game, you're like, wow, man, the Flyers really peppered them. And, the Sharks didn't get a lot of opportunities. But you dig in a little bit more and you look at scoring chances, you look at high danger chances, not so far off each other for those two teams in
Yeah.
this game. So, it's part of this continuing issue that the Flyers have with getting good shot quality and good opportunities that are more likely to go in the net here.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I mean, that's something that has to get preached. I mean, players know it to a certain degree, but sometimes you have to sit the player down and show them. Back when we interviewed Scott Hartnell, remember when we asked him about analytics, and he said John Stevens would actually show him what was going on, and then there would be like that light bulb, like, oh, okay, I don't have the puck on my stick long enough. I got to start doing that. It seems like, I'm just saying seems because we don't know, like they don't do that enough and review that enough with the players because they had the data.
Yeah, and I think that's very important, and this isn't just like a one-off case here. This is something that has been a consistent issue
Right.
with the Flyers thus far this season, and they've had some opportunities there, but they just can't finish, and that shot quality issue is a part of that. I think one of the other big issues from this game, and I don't think it's something that's been a problem this season thus far, but it was sort of evident in this game in particular, is they just got caught out there a lot,
Yeah.
especially in the second period. Extra long shifts, guys are exhausted. I would put Cam York near the top of that list
Yeah, I
of
mean, we just
having,
looked at it. He had 4 shifts, I think 4 shifts of over a minute 30 or right around a
yeah,
minute 30, and that's too much.
right. And so when you have that, you're skating tired, you're skating behind, and then you're going to dump the puck more. They
Or
had
get
is again,
penalties.
yeah, they took extra penalties that they probably wouldn't have otherwise. They iced the puck more than they should have in this game, and I think that was due to being tired, and they just wanted to get off the ice and
I mean,
or
this
stop
wasn't
the play.
right, this wasn't an overtime game. Why did Travis Sanheim get 27 minutes?
Yeah, like, guys were playing tired out
They
there,
were. You
and
you could see it in the 3rd period, at the start of the 3rd period, it was showing, and look, they tried, but again, going with the power play, the 6-on-5 was a mess too. They may have had 2, possibly 3 chances, that's it. That's it. They barely could get set up for the first, like, minute and change. Finally, with, like, 40 seconds to go, they started to get set up. There's all this scrambling going on, like these guys just don't know where to go on the ice, or they don't know how to play with each other. I mean, the Sharks aren't that good where it's that big of a problem, you know what I mean? No offense to
yeah.
them, but they're not.
No, they aren't, but again, they're playing desperate.
Yeah,
They are playing for redemption
yeah,
in a way that the Flyers were not, and it happens. Like, I think that there's a lot of things about this game for the Flyers that should be anomalies because there's a few things, that went the face-off issue, the too many icings and penalties issue, getting caught out there. I think all of those are easily solvable here and are not a pattern. So, I think that, there's ways around this moving forward. I just think it's important to point out when you do make these kinds of mistakes so that you don't make them again moving forward. And
well,
I
you
think
know what the
that's
other
what
thing
you
is?
got to take away from this.
Yeah, the other thing too is right now they're on an extended losing streak. What is it? 2-6-1, 2-5-1, something like that. But the coach doesn't act like they are. Now, look, we all know that they're rebuilding. Still doesn't mean you want to play this kind of hockey either. And they honestly, I don't think the coaching staff has found the sweet spot for a lot of these players yet. And I'm not talking about the power play. I'm just talking 5-on-5. I don't think they've figured that out. And we're at a point in the season where you'd think they might be able to figure that out because again, now who are they playing next? The Ducks, who have won like 7 in a row, I think. Like now you're going from one of the worst teams and not being hot to one of the hottest teams.
Right. Yeah, and we talked about that on the Monday show about why this was our nemesis of the week, right? This
Yeah,
California road trip
yeah.
because they were going to be facing the trap game that just happened, and then two really tough teams that they've recently lost to. So I think that it's there are lessons to be learned here, and I would hope they learn them. And like I said, I feel like, we've been talking about how while they have lost some of these games, there's some really good signs there in terms of quality of play.
Mhm.
Some of the statistics bear that out in terms of getting high danger chances, getting scoring chances, even if they weren't going in. Just they were playing better, they were carrying the puck more. I think a lot of the stuff that they had been doing well went out the window for this game, and they just got to get that stuff back. to
Yeah,
me.
it doesn't
I
seem
think
like they stuck to the script. It seems like
mhm,
um, they panicked a bit. And so, like, as an example, right? If you really do want to bring around Bobby Brink, then why did he only get 10 minutes and 48 seconds?
yeah,
Like, how's he going to learn from that? So when the
yeah,
going gets, unless he has an injury, when the going gets tough, now all of a sudden you're only, I mean, he came out of minutes as Hathaway.
yeah. Well, I think that fourth line got caught out there a couple of times, which is why their minutes were higher. So
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of that
And
going
even like
on.
Owen
But
Tippet, right? If you want him to be one of your better scorers, he played 13 and a half minutes. I mean,
yeah.
Forster played more minutes than Tippett. On what level does that make any sense?
Yeah,
That's
and I think that's where you just gotta take, the lessons you learned here and move forward to the next game and go back to the kind of stronger play that you've been having in previous games, even with the losses. And
and
I
this is
think
the other problem, and this is where we got with Couturier. Like he played 22 minutes. I get 248 was power play, but also 208 was shorthanded. You're asking this guy to do power play shorthanded. He's playing 22 minutes like nothing has gone on with him at all. Nothing. And he just came back off an injury, and you're already using him 22 minutes. Like you gotta do better than that. You can't be overusing him like that.
yeah. Well, again, a lot to glean from this one. Hopefully, they take it forward in a positive way. In the meantime, we have your mailbag questions, and we will get to them coming up next. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more, whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
You know that feeling when your favorite Flyers player scores a hat trick? If you want to get that feeling and win 100 times your money, play daily fantasy hockey on the Sleeper app. As the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL Network, Sleeper is our top choice for daily fantasy sports, especially daily fantasy hockey. Fans could also play daily fantasy NFL, NBA, MLB, and college football on Sleeper, and entries can be made in under a minute. With elite players like Connor McDavid, Sidney Crosby, and Austin Matthews, plus the new guys like Connor Bedard, all you need to do is make more or less picks on stats for these stars. Choose from stats like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more. To win 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of the 8-player stats. You heard me, Flyers fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code LOCKEDONNHL and you'll get up to a $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's Locked On NHL. See Sleeper's terms for use and details and locational availability.
On tomorrow's show, we will have some initial 2024 draft coverage, just dipping our toes in a little bit with some players to keep an eye on this season heading toward that draft. Right now, we have our mailbag, and our first question comes from YouTube user Julian Sykes, 6668, saying, we're down to 21st overall, but remaining competitive in games. Perhaps that is heading the right way for the overall rebuild.
Not quite. I do think they'll drop a bit more, so that's fine. I think in this draft you really do want to get into the top 10 if you want to get somebody who you think could be a star in the future. So I don't think it's quite right, but I do think there's a lot of time left.
Yeah, I do too. And, as we've said, that for the most part, they are playing better and the statistics show it. It's just that the results aren't there. And I think that's okay that, that there isn't any like big negativity on the team right now. It's generally positive and they all feel like everybody is playing well and contributing. And I think that's the thing you want. You want to have a positive locker room that knows it's building towards something, but maybe the results aren't there some of the time. Our next question comes from Chris. Can Cutter Gauthier keep up the pace he's been scoring this season, and will he be on the Flyers next year?
I think he can keep up the pace at the end of the college. I think he can keep up the pace, and he might be on the Flyers at the end of the college season. So I don't see a reason why he can't. He gets all the power play time, and he's one of their top 3, 4 players. So yeah, I think it could happen.
Yeah, he had 16 goals last year. And right now, this early in the season, he's got 8 goals so
Mhm.
far. So he's like already halfway to his total from last season. He's gotten a bunch of power play goals. Like you just mentioned, he's gotten a lot of that power play time. And so it seems clear he's going to exceed last year. And I do think he can maybe he's not going to be, point per game pace by the end of the season, but he'll be close. I think he'll be pretty close to that.
Yeah,
And it is possible that he'll finish up the season with the Flyers organization. But more, I would say it's kind of 50-50 between that and joining the team at camp next summer.
sure. I agree with that.
Our next question comes from Aaron. Do you see the Flyers making any regular or paper moves to save cap space while Cal Peterson is up with the team?
Not really. They don't seem to be focused on that, so I don't see it coming.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I think that, the only thing we have seen is the Victor Mete moves, and that has been partially because he was on paternity leave.
Right.
And they have to, in order to give him the time off, have him on the NHL roster, I believe, for those couple of days, and that's why some of that was happening. So I don't think that they need to. I mean, they're just under the cap right now,
Hmm.
but that's all they need. As long as they're under, that's all that matters.
Right.
And they know it can't really get any higher than it is right now with with Cal Peterson's cap hit. And if they end up sending him back down soon, they'll be fine. So I'm not worried about that for them this season. If they're having to play games like next season, gonna worry about it. But for now, I think they're okay. Mike wants to know: does Bobby Brink have a shot at the Calder?
Yeah, I think he has a shot. I think he's one of like 6, 7 guys that have a shot. I'm still backing Logan Cooley. I think he, started off a little slow, but he's just a little, he's got a higher octane than Brink, and I think being from the center position has a little bit more playmaking opportunities, so he can get more assists. Brink's off to a great start. He's definitely in the mix.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it would be really great for him if he wound up in kind of the finalist conversation at the very least. I do believe he is tied for the most points
Yeah.
amongst rookies prior to the game against the Sharks. We're recording this mailbag after that. So, we'll see what it looks like after the games from last night. But still, that's excellent beginning to this season, and I certainly hope he can keep it up. And there's a lot of really good players that are part of that group of 6 or 7 that you mentioned, and there's a lot of guys sitting at 7 points right now.
Yep.
So, including Luke Hughes and Ridley Gregg. So there's and Matthew Nyes.
Well, Bedard's in there,
Yeah, some randomly mid-level talented guys there, right? So, um, yeah, I certainly think that because he's been keeping up with them so far, I think that's a really good sign, and I certainly hope it continues. Scott had one of my favorite questions we've ever gotten, actually. He wants to know, so can we claim that the Flyers have the best forwards of any front office? We've got Briere, Jones, Leclerc, and Sharp. I'm wondering if any other team can beat it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty close. I mean, we don't get to see the whole um, hierarchy for the like the Canadians, because it's like
Hmm.
they have a lot of guys in their front office, so um,
Yeah.
they might be able to get close. But as long as you're not counting coach, because once you start counting coaches, then guys like Francis and Marty St. Louis get involved, and that's a different that's a different conversation then. But I do think the Flyers would win this. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, because I think if you look at the sum total, that's it. I think some other teams have individual players that are maybe better than some of these Flyers players, but I think if you look at that sum total, I think maybe the Canadiens is the only one that can challenge because, they do have Marty St. Louis, they have Alex Burrows, and they have, Vinny Lecavalier. People, if we are familiar with him. And so there's a couple other guys there as well that are former players. So
Yeah,
it
they have
might be,
some.
yeah, so it might be a close tie there, but pretty close. But that's a really good question and a
It
really
is. That
fun
was
one
a fun
to
one.
think about. So thanks, Scott. We will have more mailbag questions coming your way next.
Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. Again, I kind of like with the Eagles and Chiefs coming up. That could be a high scoring affair like it was in the Super Bowl. So I go for the over on that. Joe, so visit fanduel.com/locked on and get into the action this NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
So interestingly, we got a question from Will, which is now kind of moot, but also makes me a little upset because he had wanted to know, is Morgan Frost permanently back in the lineup or will things change when Sean Couturier returns? And clearly we know the answer to that question now after the game. But uh, man, like Morgan Frost did not deserve to sit.
No, no, not by any stretch of the imagination. I just don't understand it. I don't.
Yeah, it's confounding is the word I will use to describe that for sure. Next question. What players do you think the Flyers will trade at the deadline?
I think Carter Hart. I think they're going to try with Konechny, Walker. Trying to think who else from that crew. I don't know if there's that many more. There might be one more that I'm leaving out.
I think that Cam Atkinson is certainly
Atkinson, thank you. That's it.
on the table there. But I think that it'll be real interesting to see what happens with Konechny and if they decide to keep him for the remainder of this rebuild or trade, potentially high based on how he's played so far.
Right.
But I do think Cam Atkinson is more likely to be shopped like more aggressively, just because it's very clear that like the laws of time are not on his side in terms of having an opportunity to be part of, the long-term look at this rebuild. And so I think he is a better option if you're going to pick between the two. But then I also think we have the opportunity to get, something back for Walker, like the way he's been playing. And,
Mhm.
and I think that he could be a real good contributing piece to a contending team that needs depth on the blue line. I absolutely think he would be a good pickup for a lot of teams. So I do think that hopefully the Flyers can get a really strong return for him.
Yeah, because I think the other thing with Hart is you can't let it go into the summer that you hope to re-sign him, because if he doesn't re-sign over the summer, then everybody in the world knows this is his last year and his value goes down. You pretty much, if you want the most value, you got to trade him at the deadline this year because you're a rebuilding team anyhow. And that team at least gets one more year out of him. They just have to come to a contract agreement, on a qualifying offer. So I think that's their best way to go.
Yeah, I do think it's going to depend on his health situation. That
Sure.
is going to be the first factor, and then kind of go from there. Who knows? Maybe they'll re-sign him at some point during the season and surprise us all.
Yeah.
But I think any and all of that is possible. It's kind of an unknown to me, I think, at this point, what direction they will be heading in there. Derek wants to know, how do you feel about Egor Zamula's season so far?
I mean, I think it's been fine. I mean, a little up and down. I see some good things with puck movement. I know he's had some turnovers. I like the physicality. I do think he's turning into an NHL defenseman. He's a bottom pairing guy. I mean, that's okay. But I don't. I haven't had any real big problems with him.
Yeah, I haven't either, and I think it's been really good that it's just been pretty clear that he's in the lineup. I mean, the Ristolainen injury kind of solidified that, but I think he's taken real strong advantage of this opportunity and solidified this spot in the lineup for himself, and that he's doing enough of the right things, and the things that he's making mistakes on are definitely learning experiences, and I think he's not letting that affect him too much. He's just playing his game and picking his moments, and I think that is a really good sign for him moving
Yeah,
forward.
just because you brought it up, I'm worried about Ristolainen. We don't hear anything. We don't see him. There's nothing.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get an update on his prognosis coming up soon, but yeah, it is a very good question there as well. Kevin wants to know, this is another fun one. If you had to pick one of the other Philadelphia sports teams to redesign the Flyers in that color scheme and look, which one would it be?
Hmm. I mean, I guess it would be the Phillies. I think if you went with like the powder blue, it would be unique for hockey and it would be a departure for them. So if it wasn't a new era of orange, it could be a new era of powder blue.
Yeah, I think, the only thing about that, and I think my first choice would be the maroon with powder blue highlights to it, but that's very kind of Colorado Avalanche-ish. So I feel like there's too much similarity there, but I think that's probably my favorite color scheme in the city. So I think that, I mean, I feel like Kelly Green, like Eagles Kelly Green is too
You can't
obvious.
have another team with that. It's just
No,
fans won't
no.
accept that.
So I'm gonna go like left turn here and pick the Philadelphia Union
Oh
and,
gosh.
and have the navy and gold. I think that would
Okay.
be really interesting. And,
As long
and
as the letters and the numbers are in gold, because otherwise we'll never be able to read them.
well, that's possible. But could you imagine also having like the snake on the Flyers?
Be pretty good.
I would I would love that. Absolutely love that. But I like, yeah, like the navy and gold combo is pretty cool. So I'm gonna go with the Union on this one. But yeah, that was a lot of fun to think about too.
Yeah.
And like a lot of graphic designers out there make jersey mashups and
Oh
stuff,
yeah.
which is kind of cool as well. But that will do it for the mailbag for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Tomorrow on the show, like I said, we'll kind of dip our toes into the draft coverage for next year with some just potential draft picks to keep an eye on for the foreseeable future. As a reminder, we always want to hear from you. So if you've got a mailbag question you want us to answer, you can send it to us via Twitter at Locked On Flyers. You can email us at lockedonflyers@gmail.com, or you can comment over on YouTube. I'm Rachel. I'm on Twitter at rmiriam. That's RMIRIAM.
I'm Russ. I'm at Sportsology, SPORTSOLOGY.
Have a great day, everyone.